Welcome into Saturday's edition of ESPN FC here on ESPN Plus. I'm Dan Thomas, joined by Craig Burley and Stevie Nicol. Julian Laurent will be with us in a moment. Later on in the show, we'll be discussing the decision to postpone that game between Juventus and Inter Milan in Italy. We'll also be showing you that incredible footage at the end of the Bayern Munich game and 2019 for their last league defeat. What happened?
Well, take the last four games. Three sides in the league that have all been struggling. Norwich, away, they were unconvincing. Then you got the Atletico Madrid game, where they were really poor again. Then you had West Ham at home, where they could easily have taken something or won the game, easily. And then this today. And I don't think it's a slight on Liverpool. I just think that the gap became so big for these players that even as much as you tell yourself, Stevie, I don't know what you think, but even as much as you tell yourself, right, let's keep it going, there's nobody pushing them.
Right.
There's nobody pushing them in the league. And whilst it's not a concern for the Premier League, that's done, I think it is a concern for the second game against Atletico Madrid. Factor that in, Jordan Henderson as well, I think is a massive mess. He's a big driving force for them. But I think subconsciously there is just nobody pushing Liverpool now. And we're seeing that in the performances.
The results that you mentioned all came after the winter break. Does that have an effect? Did that kind of halt their momentum, halt the rhythm?
I don't think so. They're going through. I think what they're going through is the mental side of the game, because the physical side of the game today is very easy to figure out because all the fitness coaches and all the things they put them through, they know where they are physically. So that, to me, that isn't the problem. It's got to be the mental side of the game, because Liverpool in this run have gotten all the small things right. And when you get all the small things right, it stops all the big things happening.
Right.
What's been happening, and today's a great example. I was talking about the throw-in that Watford had today. Now, every man and his dog involved in football, whether it's players or coaches, when there's a throw-in coming, you know who it's going to. There's one in front and one behind. It's dead simple, and it's a small thing. But if you don't do it, then you see what happens. And Liverpool right now are not doing the small things well. You can throw the Southampton game in. You might look at the scoreline and say 4-0, but they were fortunate. So this is something that Klopp has to figure out. How does he get his players back into the mental state where they're flying, where they're passing, everything's on the ball, everybody's moving in sync? Because right now, nothing's in sync, and they're making small errors all over the place that are making them not lose that many games. But I'll tell you what, this is not the time of the year where you want to be doing this, regardless of how good you've been.
If you're not fussed about records,
yep.
And to be honest, sitting here, Stevie might be, and you know, I think he said he want the invincible thing would be good.
I did, yeah.
But for me, looking in from the outside, I'm saying I'm really not fussed about records, right? It's more about trophies, and whilst nobody wants a defeat, the timing of it might not be that bad. Particularly with this big game coming up against Atletico Madrid here, no walkovers. Just to go back and say, listen, guys, we need a little bit of a reboot here. You know, we can't. You know, we were on this sort of conveyor belt of momentum for a while, but we're not going to get through the rest of this season, FA Cup, Champions League, by playing like this. You know, we need to cut, as Stevie said, the errors, the basics, back to everything. Getting the basics correct again to allow them to go and express the other facets of the game, which have been brilliant. And sometimes it takes that. Right. Sometimes it takes a kick in the backside or a punch in the nose to go away and say, listen, forget the headlines. Forget all the talk about what we've done and the greatest teams and is this the greatest team ever in the Premier League and are they better than Man United in 90? Forget all that. Let's go and win trophies. And by doing that, we need a reboot.
I was thinking that as well. But then the worrying thing is, if it's a couple of games and it's been like that and then it's a reboot, then I think, absolutely. The worrying thing for me is that, as you brought up, ever since the break, they've kind of been on the slide. And I'm not so sure it's as simple as a reboot. I think Klopp has to take a step back. Listen, I'm all for Do what's made you successful. Keep it going. Keep it going. But there comes a time when if you're in such a slump, I mean, we're talking about 5 or 6 games here, that you have to maybe change something, whether it's in training, whether it's your preparation, whatever it may be, because if you sit back and say, well, it'll fix itself, then it may be too late, certainly for the Champions League. They'll win the league.
Yeah.
But if they want to win the Champions League, it has to change something quickly, and it has to do it now.
That's the whole thing. They've got Chelsea in the FA Cup midweek, which obviously is going to be a tough task at Stamford Bridge. Chelsea looking to try.
I mean, they're good enough to win all 3. I mean, it's tough.
At the best.
At the best, they're good enough.
But there's no carrot now at all in the league. Is that going to affect them going forward as well?
Oh, 100%. 100%. Very difficult to step on the field, particularly away from home. At Anfield, it's different because you're at home, you've got the crowd behind you. It's when you go away from home to a team further down the league where you've got nothing to win and everything to lose. It's very difficult. You've already won the league. There's that thing missing. That little.
But how easy is it to get that thing back for an Atletico game? That's obviously at Anfield. You're 1-0 down. It's going to be the whole.
You don't play at the level Liverpool are playing at unless you can step it up when it matters.
Right.
I mean, that's part of the reason why you're there, because you have that thing inside you. I don't think that's the problem.
See the difference with the mental sharpness today again with the 2 teams that Stevie was talking about? You've got a team in Liverpool who are coasting, right? And you've got a team in Watford, as the other relegation teams that they've played recently and given them a game have been in the same scenario, that they are mentally focused because the season's running out for them. The games are running out. The points are running out. And their very existence in the Premier League is at threat. So even though the quality was good from Watford today, but the quality and the disparity between the sides is generally quite a lot, what we're seeing is that gap being bridged by the fact that Liverpool have got things done and dusted primarily, or pretty much, and these other teams are absolutely scrapping for their life. So they're going into the game in 2 different zones.
Right.
Liverpool are going in and let's get the 3 points and get out of here, and Watford are going in thinking, if we don't get the 3 points now, we're adrift because the other teams have won. It's a completely different mentality from both teams.
As you mentioned, Liverpool win the league. You know, this won't make a big difference regarding who will lift that Premier League trophy come the end of the season. That epitomised when you take a look at the league table. Chelsea, by the way, dropping points today against Bournemouth. But as Craig mentioned, at the bottom of the table, you've got a Watford side who are absolutely fighting for their lives. And that win lifts them out of the relegation zone for now. Bournemouth going into it after their draw. But it is going to be an extraordinary race. Brighton losing as well today is very significant with regards to who will be playing in the Championship next season. Meanwhile, the big news coming out of Italy over the last 24 hours, 5 games that were due to be played behind closed doors have now been postponed. The match is rescheduled for May the 13th. The game, of course, which grabs all the headlines is Juventus against Inter Milan. It will not be taking place tomorrow. Julian Laurent is with us. Jules, what was it that prompted the Italian FA to decide, wait a minute, no, behind closed doors isn't good enough. We're actually going to postpone this match?
Yes, it was the latest precaution that the Italian government wanted people to take, especially when you had a big gathering of people, especially in sports, where the government said we can't take any risk anymore. This is going too far now. The coronavirus is spreading too quickly. And the outbreak is too big now, too important. We can't take any risk. And the game, even behind closed doors, those 5 games, and especially the Juventus-Inter one, a bit like we saw with the Inter-Ludogorets on Thursday night in the Europa League, that was behind closed doors. But this time they said we can't even take the risk of having 100 people, just 100 people in the same stadium at the same time behind closed doors. So they decided to postpone those games to May the 13th, which is only 2 games before.
Now, and what all that means is that Lazio are top of the table by 2 points. But let's not forget, Juventus with that game in hand. Inter, meanwhile, with 2 games in hand. According to the bookies, though, Lazio are very much still the outsiders when it comes to 3. 11-4 for Lazio, Juve 5-3 on. Inter Milan, meanwhile, at 15-4. Let's not forget, gentlemen, that Lazio are the only one of those 3 as well without European football.
Yep. Which pretty much means, and we talked about it the other day, and I actually head into Milan as my favourites to win the Europa League, but then that's just based on the fact that, you know, if Conte played his full team, which I think he pretty much isn't going to do anyway, and with this potential fixture pile-up, he's going to ditch the Europa League, I would imagine, as long as they're very much still in the hunt all the way to the end. He's just going to put a second string out in the Europa League. In fact, he's been the one that has moaned the most about fixture congestion and squads. He's been the one that's out there. Whenever they've had too many games, he's moaned about squads, he's moaned about his players, he's moaned about the fixtures, moaned about the performances.
A lot of moaning that.
There's a lot of moaning. Well, with this, you know, nasty virus going around, the Italian government are having to take correctly the precautions. The fixture pile-up's only just going to get worse. So I would rather have the points in the bag, like Lazio, than the games in the hand. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Lazio on a bad bet, are they, Stevie?
I would suggest that, yes, having the points in the bag, no question, we'd all do it, we'd all have that.
Yeah.
But if over the next couple of weeks there are more games disallowed, that's going to hurt Lazio more than the other two because they don't have a squad. They've pretty much got their starting 11.
Right.
And right now, if nothing else is cancelled, they've got a chance. But if there's cancellations, no question, that goes against them big time.
Quickly, Jules, for you, who's in the driving seat?
I still think Juve, for me, have to be the favourite because they've been there before, because they're so strong, even if things are not really working out with Sarri. And just to finish on the fixture congestion and everything, Inter already had a tough last two games with Napoli and then away at Atalanta on the last day of the season. Now they will have to go away to Juventus, at home to Napoli, and away to Atalanta. And for Lazio and Juve, although Juve finished against Roma, it's a slightly easier fixture list than the three last games for Inter.
For the Mexican international, the all-time leading goal scorer for the Mexican national team. Not one chance today. It's going to be a long, long season if he can't link up with Christian Pavón, with what is Sasha Kljestan, with Katai, with Joe Benny Coroni when he's on the field. They don't seem to have enough playmakers with Christian Pavón's 1v1 ability to get around guys, and you saw that he was starving for service. That was not the case with Zlatan Ibrahimovic. He was never starving for service. They almost played route one, very direct to him. They catered to his style. That's not going to be the case with Chicharito Hernandez. I spoke to Guillermo Barros Schelotto when this signing happened, and he said that they're going to play different than they did last season. He expected them to be a more solid defensive team. That they were. But if you're Chicharito Hernandez, you should be a little worried about the amount of, or I should say lack of service from the LA Galaxy.
And Herc, that frustration seemed palpable as the game went on. You could see it in his face, in his body language. This is a bit of a baptism of fire for him.
Yeah, you know, the body language is something that's very big, but I will say in maybe Chicharito's defense, that body language is a lot different than Zlatan Ibrahimovic's body language last season. It didn't matter what happened. Zlatan would almost reprimand or kind of throw it in their face to his teammates, his teammates in the rest of the world, what was being happened, what wasn't going on. Chicharito Hernandez, a lot of that time, that body language, you can almost conceive as he's trying to pump his teammates up. He is the captain of this team, so there's a lot riding on his shoulders, not only scoring goals, but also to motivate his team and win. Listen, he's saying all the right things. He says, I don't care if I score one goal as long as the team lifts that trophy. But I think even he knows that can't be the case. He's been brought here to score goals. He's been brought here to be the man with the LA Galaxy. And yes, you're absolutely right.
Plus, the Carabao Cup final will be on air before at 11 a.m. to count down to kickoff. Thank you very much to the boys. Stay tuned now for Extra Time. Welcome into Extra Time. Thank you very much for your tweets. Boys here in the studio, plus Jules. There's a lot of questions about the same topic. Watford, of course, beat Liverpool. Two of Watford's goals came from throw-ins. Stevie, both goals for Watford come from throw-ins. Should Liverpool hire the Watford throw-in coach?
Well, clearly the throw-in coach doesn't do defensive throw-ins.
Right.
So maybe they need to employ a defensive throw-in against coach.
Which
That's the answer.
Brings us to the next point. For Jules, 2 of the 3 goals that Liverpool conceded came from the throw-ins. Does the throw-in coach only work for the attacking contribution?
I believe so, yeah. So maybe Stevie is right. Maybe they should start looking for a defensive throw-in coach that will prevent conceding goals from opposition throw-ins.
I saw something on Twitter a couple of weeks ago, and it was somebody trying to point out something that Leipzig did at Tottenham, and how this is how a throw-in coach helps. And it was basically Leipzig trying to box Tottenham in.
Right.
And whilst I don't rule out a throw-in coach being any use to anybody, if it's good enough for Klopp, I'm fine by it. It was just a bog standard piece. We always used to do that. You know, it's something that everyone works on. You work on boxing people in, or letting them out at once. Whatever it is you do, you just overload. And I thought, here's some people just taking Saham and gone. And it really just stood out as people just don't have a clue actually how it works.
Craig, if you're Simeone and Atletico Madrid, what do you take away from this Liverpool match ahead of the second leg?
That they're vulnerable. They become vulnerable at the back. That they can be. That you can expose the space in behind the full-backs in particular because they are so good going forward. And Van Dijk and Gomez, when he's been available, have snuffed any problems out. But I mean, if Van Dijk and say Gomez, Stevie, are not quite in the game, and Alexander-Arnold and Robertson are piling forward, I mean, you could hit there on the counter-attack.
You can definitely take out the performance. If you want to concentrate on the Liverpool side of it, the performance of Liverpool in the first leg wasn't just a one-off. They're actually not in good form.
Right.
And so you should take heart from that it's not a one-off and they're just not playing particularly well right now.
You look at the chance young Bowen had for West Ham right at the death when they played a little diagonal ball through in behind Van Dijk, I think it was, but for Alisson making a good save with the head, I think it came off.
Yep.
We're seeing chances created against them recently that we really weren't earlier in the season.
And it's not even confined to one thing, you know. Set pieces, they've looked vulnerable. Now, if set pieces is the only time you look vulnerable, then that's a lot easier to fix than it is. The team's cutting you up, but they're getting cut up as well.
Why the managers of relatively smaller teams substitute a player on a hat-trick most of the time, considering he's not going to get that opportunity too often again? Steve?
No idea. No idea. I mean, if somebody's on a hat-trick...
You're talking about Sarr.
Yeah, that was the one that stood out today,
I don't understand that. I really don't understand it.
Well, maybe
unless it's as straightforward as you're taking a forward off just to block everyone up.
Well, the other side of the coin is he's been out.
Yeah.
He's been out, I think, for around a month. And so, what's more important? Hat-trick or him being fit for the rest of the season? I think that's pretty obvious. And I think that's why they would do it. No?
I mean, yeah, maybe, aye, but I just don't understand.
You know, I think when people are talking about taking players off, who was it? I can't remember, we were talking about it before. But anyway, Nigel Pearson couldn't give us stuff
that he's on a hat-trick.
That he's on a hat-trick, right. But he could give us stuff if he's out for a month again.
Okay.
So that, I think it's precautionary.
I'm assuming he's got a good reason for it.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, I don't understand sometimes. Listen, there's one thing. I can assure you, when you go on the field to play as a substitute, it takes you at least 5 minutes to get in tune with the game. Because basically, whether you've been running up and down or not, you're not in tune with the game. It takes you 5 minutes to get your lungs going and get in tune with everything else. So, in my opinion, unless the game is done and dusted, you leave things the way they are.
Final question. The boys talked about this yesterday, Jules, but what is the French equivalent to Xhaka's Carnival?
We've got a few carnivals. We've got one in Nantes, we've got one in Lille, few celebrations like that in the south of France as well, southeast. So it's maybe not as iconic as the one in Trinidad and Tobago, or the one in Rio, for example, and that kind of stuff, or even in Venice. But we still have a few celebrations like that around the country.
Have you been to the one in Rio?
No, I haven't. No, I haven't. But there is a Cornish equivalent. May the 8th, every year, we all dance around the towns of Helston to the Flora dance that Terry Wogan used to sing. Remember that? And we're all dressed in white to welcome in the spring. There you are, beautiful. Learn something new every day.
And why were you doing it?
Because all the school kids did it. So when I was a school kid, we used to do it.
Do you morph into your very Cornish accent?
You do go very Cornish, and it's a little bit xenophobic, and you can only dance. The people at the front of the dance, the people born in Cornwall, and the ones at the back have not been born in Cornwall.
Oh, that's
Sounds like a good one to miss. If you don't mind me saying so.
very uninclusive.
No, indeed.